Welcome to Raising New Stars, and I'm your host, Zoe Love, and today we're going to talk about the last stage of development, the adolescent stage. Now, the adolescent stage is from 12 years old to 18 years old. Now, the psychological development that should be achieved at the adolescence age is identity. Now, identity is a really big word because identity means sexual identity, gender identity, class identity, racial identity. Short people identity, tall people identity. It's just a big word. And at this age, to really be thinking about your purpose and who you want to be and what you are and where you come from and where you're going is a big task. And how do we help our children out with this task? Well, throughout their entire development. From infancy, we want to teach them the skill to attach to others. In the toddler age, we want them to be able to do the mind-body control, to be able to manage that. In the preschool age, we want them to be able to initiate and be confident in trying to do things on their own. And in the school age, we want them to be able to manage and develop more skills and manage tasks and multitask and adapt and be flexible with their social skills. So all this builds to the teenage stage. What makes it really hard for the teenage stage is the introduction to a lot of adult activities. Now, adults' beliefs, feelings are already being introduced in the younger stages, but it's really a big deal at the teenage stage because of the body. The body shows adult, even though the brain shows child. I always recommend our parents to continue to talk about their values and their culture and how they were as a teenager in reason, right? Because if you did a lot of bad behaviors, you might want to leave a lot of that out and try to focus on your skill building. And you always have adulthood to go back to your teenage rebellious days, but they call this the rebellious kind of stage for a reason, because our children must be making decisions on their own. They have to be socializing on their own at this stage, because once they are legally an adult, the court systems, the education system, no one's going to give them much of a break. So the teenage stage, you know what it really reminds me of? It reminds me of the toddler stage. For me, it feels like, even though the body looks like an adult, that we regress between 12 or 13 to 18 back to the toddler stage, really trying to get our mind and our body to sync, because the sexual hormones and all the bodily changes that are happening. So once all that's established, the mind and body connection from toddler kind of comes back to the teenage stage, and they really have to manage the sexual organs and their mind and really stand focused. And I always recommend our parents to continue to talk about their values and their culture and how they were as a teenager in reason, right? Because if you did a lot of bad behaviors, you might want to leave a lot of that out and try to focus on your skill building. And you always have adulthood to go back to your teenage rebellious days, but they call this the rebellious kind of stage for a reason, because our children must be making decisions on their own. They have to be socializing on their own at this stage, because once they are legally an adult, the court systems, the education system, no one's going to give them much of a break. So we want them to go into adulthood solid. Now, I really want caregivers to go back and try to remember how it felt to be a teenager. And when I think about my teenage years, I just think about a lot of energy, a lot of power, a lot of strength, very curious, and wanted some type of control over my life, over other people's lives. Remember that? If you remember, please hit the thumbs up. and like the video if you can totally relate and remember what it was like being a teenager. So I just want parents to remember that, parenting and advising and being your child's rock and a soundboard doesn't just start with infancy, but it's something that we're going to give our children for the rest of their lives. Definitely being a nurturer, but also a disciplinary, because we want our children to know that there are limits. There's limits in society, there's limits to risk, boundaries for their own protection. If the child received a skill and has routine from school age, that will cross over to the adolescent teenage. So they automatically have skills they can go to. For example, if a child plays piano since school age, since 6 years old, plays piano, and they play piano all the way till 16, they have that skill to rely on to cope, and they also have that skill to have a community of musicians. Let's say a child plays soccer since school age, 6 years old, and they end up playing soccer in high school. They have that skill to cope. That's another way to identify, and also they already have a group of people. So because of the adolescent stage, we're really trying to find out our purpose and who we are and where we fit in the world. You have a lot of people, adults, and organizations who feed off of adolescent stage, who will look for vulnerable young adults who are looking for direction and try to grab them into gangs, grab them into cults. So that's one of the reasons why parents have to be so flexible during this age of listening, of disciplining, of giving freedom when we see our child is gaining more responsibility. If we see our child slacking, taking that away, really having conversations, being real with your child, but also being reasonable, because they're still a child. So they are not grown. They still need structure. They still need discipline. They still need routine. And they still need you as an advisor. Okay? Again, please share the video. Share if you care. Big ups to the teenagers and the adolescents, one of my second favorite stages of child development. Again, please subscribe if you like the content and want to see more videos. Thumbs up if you like the video. Please share. And like I always say, caregivers, stay healthy and keep our babies